My name is Jason Kinsey, and I am the principal at Arrowsmith School in Toronto. Joining us today, actually setting all of this up for us, is Arrowsmith Programs Marketing Department, Alice Ross. We've got Mr. Bob Gunning, who is the principal of Arrowsmith School Peterborough. And then we have our parent panel, really the people who you have come here to learn from. We have Shannon Ferguson, whose daughter is the very first enrollee in Arrowsmith School Online. We have Miss Jennifer Harris, whose two sons attended Arrowsmith School in Toronto and actually transitioned out different paths. One went public, one went private. And also Vicki Preston, whose daughter has been a full-time student at Arrowsmith School in Peterborough and is transitioning out. She's currently involved in the part-time program, and everybody here is keen to answer the questions that we have for you today. So let's wait 2 more minutes, Alice. And again, thank you to our kids for setting this up and allowing us an opportunity to connect with people who discover private or independent schools through ourkids.net, and in trying to supplement what would typically be offered at their expos across the province and across the country. Jennifer. Boy, this is a long one. So what did you appreciate most about Arrowsmith School during your child's time here? And how has your perspective on that changed now that you have had some distance from the school?
Very good question. The nicest thing about when both of my kids were there, and they were very different people, was that they finally, their stress level went down. They finally felt like they could accomplish things. Their self-confidence rose dramatically and also very quickly. It was the classroom environment where there were all sorts of kids with different challenges, but everybody had something, and it was so accepting. There was no fear or shame that was either spoken or unspoken. It was just, this is your challenge, and let's deal with it. And it was just a very accepting environment. So they felt, and it was noticeable how their self-confidence went up and how their stress level went down.
Okay. And generally, when both boys transition out, were they able to carry that, I guess, new sense of calm into their new schools?
Yeah, it was different for both, because Will, my oldest, who went into public school, he was older, so he went straight into grade 9 in high school, and so there was a certain amount of stress, because in Ontario you have to have so many credits and you have to meet so many benchmarks right off the bat, and he's going from Arrowsmith right into a full course load. So there's a bit of stress in that. He spent the first year with his head down a bit. It was also a really big school that he went to. But it was more, he wanted to meet his own challenge. Like he wanted to prove to himself that he could do it, that his time at Arrowsmith was of value and meant something, and he did that. At the end of the year, he was on the honor roll. Like he put his head down, and he worked really hard. And then grade 10, I mean, he looked up a bit and became quite a bit more social and wasn't quite as academically strong, but I mean, that's okay. And then my younger son, Ewan, went into a very small private school, and that met his needs much better. So he took that same self-confidence and curiosity about the world, because I can do this, and that really followed through and was much more prevalent in him than it was in Will, but for different reasons. And I think it was, I mean, by the time Will hit grade 10, it was, he was all fine.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Vicki, I've got a question for you. To the best of your knowledge, what sets Arrowsmith School apart from other private or independent schools?
Um, so I guess the main thing is that its primary focus is on improving cognitive skills. And that's why we chose Arrowsmith, because our daughter Monica has, specific cognitive challenges. And we felt that the Arrowsmith program was really designed to address those challenges. But I had not quite fully understood the degree to which it would also build confidence. And that is, partly, of course, because of the fact that she had an individual program and individual attention. And so, she had a sense of herself succeeding, but also because of the environment in the school, which was very much celebrating success of everybody. So even though it was an individualized program, the success of everybody was really emphasized, and everyone would stop whatever they were doing if someone achieved mastery in any area. And so everybody, it was really like a cheerleading, supportive, encouraging environment, which I think is pretty unique from any kind of school standpoint. And that was really key to her development of confidence. And also, I think it's hard to know exactly how much confidence affects your cognitive ability, but surely that it also had an effect on her ability to perform well, because she felt that she could. And she had a lot of experiences of feeling like she didn't really quite get what was going on around her beforehand in school, and having a sense of lacking confidence as a result of that. And the other thing is really the staff, who are, every member of staff that I have met at Peterborough is part of that ethos of cheerleading and encouraging and supporting, and really just providing this incredibly supportive environment, so that she felt safe to get out of her comfort zone. She felt safe to try new things. I think all of those things contributed to making it a really unique and special environment. That really
Yeah. Now, a follow-up question, and then a question for Mr. Gunning. How many years did Monica spend at Arrowsmith School, Peterborough? I know she's in the part-time program right now, but how many years in the full-time program?
I'm one of those people that likes to, keep a suitcase packed with a backup plan and a backup plan of a backup plan. So we were not willing to fully commit to Arrowsmith, because I'm kind of reluctant to leave a great school that we were at already, but it was not really working for her. But I was reluctant to leave. And so we started with a part-time program. So she did that for a year. And really the effects were we saw the effects very quickly. Their improvements, not just in her cognitive capabilities, but in her self-confidence. And so she then went full-time for 2 years. And right now she's still doing the part-time program. So we went half in the water and then jumped right in. And now we're getting out slowly as well. So she will do at least this year, primarily because we really want her to be able to get the sense of mastery of having mastered 10-handed clocks, which is such an amazing challenge, and something that
it is
she
indeed.
would always know she'd managed to do. So,
right. All right, Mr. Gunning, if you could please share with us, typically, how long do people spend in the full-time program at Arrowsmith School?
Yeah, so it's always a challenging question. It really depends on the individual's profile. Once an assessment is going to be completed, we're able to provide a range of years amount in the program to bring all areas up to average. For a lighter profile, it might be somebody for a year or 2 years, maybe even in the part-time program. But typically what we see is students in here between 2 and 4 years full-time in the program, bringing as many cognitive areas up into that average range. I think it's also important to talk about expectations and goals. I remember, meeting with Vicky and Phil, and that was a large part of our conversation. What do we want to get out of the program? What are your expectations out of this program? And it's our responsibility as principals to make sure that, yes, this is a realistic plan, and then we reevaluate after each year or even throughout the year we kind of have a team. So it's the parents, myself as principal, the cognitive teachers, the academic teachers, and anybody else that wants to join into this, so we can collectively come together, evaluate all different facets of the program and other factors as well to bring them in to collectively decide what do we feel is the best. And Arrowsmith will always make our recommendation, and again work with the families to make sure that their needs are met throughout that time period.
Excellent. Thank you. And yes, not only am I the principal at Arrowsmith School in Toronto, but my son also goes to Arrowsmith School, Toronto. My wife and I decided to enroll him in January of this year, actually. And when we first assessed him, I anticipated that Jack would need a 4 to 5 year program. But then based on the amount of progress he was able to make in his first 6 months, it's allowed me to revisit my estimated program length that now I'm thinking he may only need an additional year after this year. And that's where everybody has an estimated program length that would be revisited based on their progress, month to month over the course of the school year, and then during retesting. So I remember sitting down with my spouse and talking about my expectations for Jack, and she was actually quite shocked that it may take that long as I'd anticipated. But because of his hard work and his efforts, it's allowed us to revisit that number.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, Jason, a lot of this is about engagement. We have students that come in that are able to engage right off the bat and get right into their programs. We have adult students that treat this like a job. They come in and they work tirelessly throughout the day. They can shave off time in their estimated program if they're engaged and working hard. We've also had students that engagement's been difficult, and they've been having to improve throughout the years, but it does elongate the program if they are unable to engage fully right off the hop.
Nope, that's a good point. Now, I'm going to turn to a current full-time parent whose daughter was the very first student officially enrolled in Arrowsmith School online. And Shannon, I guess my question for you is, why did you choose Arrowsmith School online originally? What brought you to this?
Thank you first of all, for having me here, because I'm such a huge fan of Arrowsmith. So we originally chose the 8-week cognitive intensive program out of desperation. While she might be doing well academically, we were just really noticing her struggle in, if you will, just executive functioning and certain aspects of life. Her academic school is a very exclusive school. It's a beautiful school, and it utilizes their strengths to support their differences. Well, we had the luxury of enrolling Avery in the cognitive program, and Arrowsmith's ability to isolate the difference is really why we then pulled my daughter out of school and have enrolled her full time. It is fascinating by isolating that difference and utilizing a muscle that's not been utilized, how quickly the changes we have noticed. So that's honestly the main reason, because without a support system in place, when we went, due to COVID, we had to go virtual with her previous school. We noticed once you remove the support, my child was struggling. Arrowsmith is strengthening that, and all of a sudden she's able to do life better and learn better. So we were, as you said, we were the first. While I'm very envious of the people who get a chance to go to your physical brick and mortar locations, I can say without a doubt that your online program is doing the work of your physical locations. And we were it was an easy decision actually to remove her and put her online full time. And to piggyback off of what Jennifer and Vicki had said, while it was certainly challenging for us in the beginning to work a muscle we've never worked, I could not believe how quickly her confidence grew and what a difference that has just made overall in our life as a family. So that's why we chose Arrowsmith.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's, yeah. And for those of you who are visiting us and learning more, Shannon's daughter is enrolled in Arrowsmith School Online. Arrowsmith School Online offers a full-time program in the morning where a student is able to work on up to 4 different cognitive exercises. And then we also offer a full-time program that runs in the afternoon. You know, and right now, Vicky's located in the United States, and we have students that are kind of around the world. We have some families from overseas in France. We also have some families from the Caribbean, all across the U.S. and different parts of Canada. So it's all encompassing, and again, it allows more people to access the work that we do here at the school and at our schools. And yeah, it was great that Shannon was able to get that first exposure to Arrowsmith program in the 8-week program, and then from what they saw, they wanted to pursue the full-time offering from September. So thank you for that. I guess, well, it sounds like confidence has been one of the biggest impacts on our children, where they're able to start to do things with ease that they couldn't necessarily do before with ease. So Jennifer, what are some of the other bigger impacts specifically on Will and Ewan that you saw over the course of their time with us?
Their work ethic, I think, would be the next one that really comes out loud and clear. They, I mean, I really appreciated what Vicki said about the cheerleading aspect of the classroom and of the teachers, and it's interesting to hear about the online program because I didn't really know much about it, but the amount of emotional support gave them the confidence and reduce the stress, but then the amount of work is a lot, and it's hard, but somehow that manifests into for all of those things, they gained an incredible work ethic because they wanted to improve. They wanted to reach their goals, and so they just put their head down and worked. Like they came home and they did their hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever was required at the time, and they did it. And they didn't go off and they didn't complain. My boys are very goal oriented, so it was a little bit easier for them because I know that some kids had challenges sitting down and doing all the work, but then they had to go back to class the next day and discuss it, and there was the constant encouragement really helped that. So I'd say that was the biggest part. The friendships that they had. I mean, Will is now in his 3rd year at university, and Ewan is in grade 10, and he left after grade 5. So don't know if I'll do the math quickly on that one, but anyway, you get the idea. They still are friends with their peers that they had at Arrowsmith, and that's a really valuable thing because that's hard when you're so young to still have those friends. Yeah. So that was another big deal.
I mean, I was one of Will's teachers, I think during his last year here, and it feels just like yesterday that your boys were here, and yet I don't feel any older now knowing that he's in his 3rd year of university. It is crazy. Okay. Vicki, apart from the hard work is undisputable, the sense of accomplishment and confidence that Monica's successes have given her. what's another big impact that you've seen with Monica as a result of Arrowsmith?
So yeah, I'd echo the work ethic. That's definitely has a dedication to work that surprised me. When she started full time at Arrowsmith, really for the first time in a long time, she was told she was now going to have homework. And I dreaded that because my expectation was that it was going to be getting her home and then sitting here and fighting with her and trying to get her to do it. And she'd be getting up and getting distracted. And really, from the get-go, she was like, "Mom, don't talk to me right now. I've got to do my homework." And that really, she just got that very, very quickly. And my experience before of any work that had to be done at home was really a huge struggle for both of us. So that the work ethic, dedication to getting a task completed, also really important and very different from how she had been previously. And I think, Shannon sort of touched on that a little bit as well, but it's also the impact on the whole family. It's not just the changes that we've seen in Monica, but it's the impact that it has on all of us. Because one of the things that I had failed to fully understand was how much she was struggling. And I had also failed to understand how much I was doing for her, really carrying a cognitive load that I didn't even realize I was carrying until she stopped using my brain for things and started using her own. And I noticed the sense of relief of, oh, I don't have to do that. Oh, I don't need to do that anymore. And so, really that a sense of independence as well, that there was a whole chunk of my brain that had been dedicated to making sure she didn't forget things, making sure she was organized. And, she's not perfectly organized or non-forgetful now. I still have to do a fair bit of that, just like any parent. But I was carrying more of that than I realized was fairly typical. And I've really noticed, for me especially, not so much for her dad, because I was carrying most of it, but I've really noticed that lift and how, I have now more brain power available to do other things as well. So yeah, that would be another aspect to the benefits from Arrowsmith for us.
Excellent. Now, were there any barriers to accessing Arrowsmith for you? Or I know that Monica started in the part-time program, again, because she was having an enjoyable school experience, apart from maybe the academic struggles. But were there any additional barriers to accessing Arrowsmith for you?
I think that the biggest barrier for me was really just because we had done a lot and we'd moved countries. We'd chosen Peterborough as a place to live because we had chosen a school here that we wanted her to go to, and because I had a huge amount invested personally in the idea of what I wanted her to be doing and the school that I wanted her to be at, and it was very hard for me to let go of what I wanted for her and all the energy and effort that we had put into providing that, and admit that she was not able to take advantage of what was on offer because of the cognitive challenges that she had, and that she would be much better served by a program such as Arrowsmith, which would be really targeting those specific cognitive challenges. And so that, I would say that was the biggest obstacle, was just letting go of the idea of, no, I wanted to be at this school,
Right.
because that's what I'm chosen for her. Yeah. And it's great. And subsequently we absolutely know we made the right decision, not only through the gains that she's made, but also because I remember her about a year after she was full-time at Arrowsmith, when I was talking about her previous school, and I mentioned it and said, but you were happy there? And she said, well, Mom, I was happy there to begin with, but I didn't actually realize how unhappy I was until I now know what it's like to be really happy in my school environment. And I'm able to look back and go, well, I wasn't that happy actually, because this is where I'm really happy. And, just the fact that she had that ability to do that sort of metacognition was kind of sort of stunningly fantastic for me, as well as the fact that, she was obviously able to experience and love her current environment. So, there was a lot to be learned from that. And, I'm just glad we made the right choice. So.
Yes, of course. Jennifer, were there any barriers to you or your family in accessing Arrowsmith School? You're muted. Can I unmute?
Thank you.
There we go. There we go.
We were lucky in that we lived close by. The barrier was the boys were at a local school that I loved and had poured my heart and soul into. And exactly as Vicki said, and Shannon has said, that it was such a wonderful school. How could it not be working? And I have 3 kids and all 3 of them were there. It was more my letting go. And the same thing, once he was very happy there, but once he was at Arrowsmith and to see how happy he was, and at the same time to have that perspective of, yeah, it was great, but it wasn't working, and to accept that's okay to accept. Sorry, there was one other thing I was going to reiterate, but it's really, the barrier was more on me. It was hard to have that conversation with him and say, we're taking you out of your school with all of your friends that you've known since you were 2, and to take you to an alternative school where you know nobody. But once he was there, it was almost like the first day was, he jumped out of the car, sort of like, why am I doing this? And then I picked him up. And he's like, oh, that was fun. It was like, okay. So it was surprising how quickly the transition in was, and the transition out was a little bit more difficult, because it was, I felt like there was a cocoon around him, or at least he had maybe built a cocoon around himself. But the school was very supportive in saying, no, you're ready to go. Yeah. The whole point is to be here, fix it. Once it's fixed, off you go. You don't stay here. Your time is a limited, finite amount of time. And that little push of the baby bird out of the nest was done by the school. I didn't need to do quite so much. And the amount of support that I was giving him, and once I didn't have to give that support, I realized how much I was actually giving. So anyway, I think I answered the question.
Yeah, no, you did. And I think that's another thing that I believe sets Arrowsmith apart, where you're absolutely right. It is a fixed term where that families stay with us, and that I know that Rob has had those conversations, and I've had those conversations where we are prepping families to let them know this is going to be your child's last year. As an aside, my son is using that as motivation. He cannot wait to go back to the same school that his sister is at. And every time a little bit of reluctance or resistance to the work pops up, I just remind him, Jack, what's your goal? And he's able to say to go back to the same school that Stevie's at. So he certainly gets that. And I guess because we are a transient school, if you will, where people are parachuted in, they spend a specific amount of time here and then they move out. It's really on us as as a school, as an institution, to create a sense of community. And not only that, but also to help educate families, because what we do is very different from the regular school system. So Shannon, if you will, because I know that you were an active participant right from the start in the summer. Can you talk about how Arrowsmith School Online has created a sense of community amongst the online families?
Yes.
And then, but sorry, before you start to answer that, I am going to turn off my microphone and my camera for a second. I've just got word that I've got a student who's not feeling well upstairs in our health and wellness room, and I want to go and check on them and to make sure mom's been contacted, okay? So Shannon can answer the question about building the sense of community, and then if when she's finished, if I'm not back, if Vicky, I was going to follow up with you as well, because I know that this is something that Peterborough has done and done extremely well over the course of their years. So go ahead, Shannon, talk about Arrowsmith School Online, and then Vicky, please talk about the community building at ASP, okay?
Yes. All right. Thank you, Jason. So it is interesting that, well, I'm going to actually talk about the barrier to entry and then talk about community, because people might not think that there's a barrier to entry when you're virtual. So to whomever is listening to this, who might be wanting to go to the online program, really the same barriers. And I just really loved what Vicki and Jennifer said. It was about us as parents. My husband and I were really on board once we saw the cognitive intensive program, but her grandparents weren't. If you were, maybe society wasn't. Like, what are you doing pulling her out of school? But we had the front row seat to see the impact that it had. And that gave us the confidence that we were doing the right thing to go virtual. And interesting on the sense of community. So my daughter is exceptionally possessive of her time and her privacy. And she really doesn't, I don't check her work. I don't anything. And like, she just won't even let us. But the teachers are communicating with us on basically a daily basis, as well as a weekly summary for a progress report. And because we're doing so well as a family, now we're able to build community outside of our four walls. But then also with the fellow parents, we have parent meetings. I think can I call myself a room mom if there is no room? But, you know, it's like I'm room mom for the Arrowsmith, and we have weekly connection sessions just to kind of check in. And we've introduced ourselves. We don't feel alone. My daughter's an only child. We don't feel not a part of the community. And I just think it's because the hard work, we see the hard work and we reap the benefits of it. And we are in a chat group. I'm not going to lie. Those of us, because there's her class, there's like 6 of us in 6 different countries, and we are on a WhatsApp chat. It just like, hey moms, how's it going? So I don't, it's hard work, but it's still so rewarding, even being virtual. I hope I answered that question.
And I think, Jennifer, you're going to share how the community is for in-person students.
So yeah, there was a great sense of community at Arrowsmith Peterborough, and I think Monica experienced that not just in the classroom in terms of the, as I mentioned earlier, sort of celebration of success, but also all the different clubs that were set up, which I think Rob had quite a lot to do with setting those up, and and she was participating in a lot of those activities, and she ran for the student council, which was a huge thing for Monica. It's the kind of thing she would never touch with a barge pole before Arrowsmith. She's not used to taking leadership positions. She's definitely somebody who will follow others, but not the one that's going to stand out and say, I'll do that. So, those were also indicative of some of the changes, but they were part of the way in which they built community, very, very definitely. And we also had a parent group. We met once a month, physically, in person, the coffee when we could still do that in the days when that was still normal. And then we switched over and we did it on Zoom, initially weekly, after we went over to virtual learning, just to try and sort of figure out how we were going to all manage with different families and different kids at different schools that were on different programs that everybody was doing virtually. And so we were also supporting each other that way. And I know that Peterborough has now just set up, and Rob, you better tell me what it's called. I'm not sure I know the name, something like Coffee and Chat Community, which is going to be a virtual get together for the parents, which is fantastic. I mean, that's wonderful that that's going to continue. And I definitely want to be part of that, even though we're only virtual.
And I should actually say, I'm sorry, Vicki, to interrupt. The online program also has student council. So there are even those same clubs they're doing virtually. And I had to interrupt because, like this is the first time my daughter's ever wanted to do student council. And then they all have their own teams so that there's a chat that the kids do after school. So thank you for reminding me that Arrowsmith is online, is contributing that club and the council and the coffees and all that. That's available to those of us online.
Also online from Peterborough was all the the little things that made the program virtually still having that sense of community. And I remember Rob, for example, would do some short videos sometimes in the mornings. And some of Monica's other teachers would also send videos with their kids, and they'd have quizzes and they'd have challenges for the week or the day. All those little things that just create community. So it wasn't just trying to do the cognitive work, but also participating in fun activities together. So I think all of those are really important. And also because Monica was working online since March, and now because she's doing the part-time online, I also find that I have the opportunity to spy on her a bit, because she too does not like me looking over her shoulder. She doesn't want me checking on her work. She likes to sometimes bring something to me and tell me, look what I did, and she's proud of having achieved something. And certainly if she's mastered something in an Arrowsmith cognitive task, then she has all kinds of ways of surprising us and making us wait, and just playing games with us to announce that she's achieved some new goal. But with teams, it means that I can kind of just check in every now and again and just see what she's been doing and see what they've been doing in the group, and follow some of that, see how engaged she is. So that's been really useful as a way of giving me also a bit more insight into what she's doing online. So thanks.
Yeah, I mean, the community and education and communication has been very important to us, and that's why this year we're in a great position where we have taken Miss Chrissy Bass-West from ASP, and now are sharing her amongst all 3 schools as the parent liaison, who is responsible for not only connecting families, but also running kind of Access Arrowsmith opportunities to learn about the exercises. Very, very often in my early experience at Arrowsmith, it's still kind of a mystery of what goes on here. It's hard to get a real sense of what the exercises are like. And so we've had opportunities for parents to come in and learn about the exercises and to try them themselves. I know that Rob at ASP has done a really good job of having parents hosted by the children, and the parent gets to be the student while the child gets to be the teacher. And that's always a lot of fun, because parents then can develop a sense of what exactly they do all day. I know that in my role as principal, that it's often hard to convey to families that, well, we're going to find 6 or 8 of the hardest things for your child to do, and they're going to spend the whole day doing this, and then, oh, when the exercises, when it looks like they're getting too easy, we're going to celebrate it, and then we're going to turn around and make them harder. And that it's always trying to increase the capacity and push forward. I often tell students that I'll see in the hallway, they'll let me know how much work they've accomplished in a period. And they're almost hopeful that I'll say, okay, we'll take the rest of the period off. But I always tell them that there's never an amount of work that they can tell me that's going to let me say that, because they're always trying to do more. And very often this is the first place that they'll feel successful. Now, Jennifer, given that you've had the distance from the school that you've had, and that Will and you have had, what do they say about their time with us or their experience with us?
Will has more perspective. He's older. They know when they're not working hard. Because they know what it's like to work hard. So they know when they're slacking off. And Will's he's in his third year, but in that time he's learned a lot about himself, and now he's decided that he wants to switch programs. And it's almost like his time at Arrowsmith forced him at a very young age to reflect on who he was as a person and what his strengths and weaknesses are, and to constantly be questioning them. But I say that in a positive way. Is this what I really like? And he started his program, and that was what he wanted to do, and there was no getting around it. And a little bit of it's in the arts. And he's a beautiful artist and a beautiful photographer, and that was really his focus, and we supported him. And I think a little bit of it was the math and sciences that were hard, and he knew he wasn't working that hard. So he's actually now taking a part-time load and doing the maths and sciences for grade 12 that he didn't want to take when he was in grade 12. So, but that takes a huge amount of courage and self-confidence.
It does.
The paperwork to do, for him to sign up for an online grade 12 math course and grade 12 biology. But he's doing it. I have no idea when he's at class or when he's not at class. And he's also doing his university courses. So we're very proud. We're very proud as parents to watch him do that. And Ewan is very focused on he plays squash, and he's very focused on that. But he knows exactly when he's working hard and when he's not.
Right. The October is Learning Disability Awareness Month. And, very often it's something I heard Rob say during one of our, I think, parent meetings where, Arrowsmith School wants to get under the diagnosis. If you've had children in the system and they've been through the psychological educational testing, it does afford the creation of a label, because that label is what gives parents access to services. But at Arrowsmith School, we recognize obviously that learning disabilities do not have to be for life, and in fact that the learning disabilities that can be remediated. So October is Learning Disability Awareness Month, and very often we don't want students to feel self-conscious or self-aware that they're coming to Arrowsmith, because it's a short-term school, and the students are here to work on themselves. I remember when I was a classroom teacher, I really played up the courage that it takes a student to put their hand up and admit that they need help. Very often, you have the students that might act out in the regular school system because they don't understand. Often, misbehavior is linked directly to not understanding what you have to do. So the easiest way to get out of having to show that you don't understand is to act out. And I live that with my son. And with students, the kind of the stigma of being taken to the resource withdrawal room, or having the special education resource teacher come into your classroom to work with you in the back on something that is more at your level, while the rest of your classmates are at the, the front of the room working on the age appropriate or grade level material. We seem to single out the students that struggle with learning. Did your children, Jennifer, feel as though, did they feel singled out or set apart in coming to Arrowsmith School? And if they did that change over time?
Will did initially, but his demeanor is very, very quiet and calm, so it wasn't as obvious, whereas Ewan was the one that acted out, and he became the class clown, and he had a great audience. So when we removed him from that audience, he could no longer be the class clown, because he was amongst his peers that were all doing the same thing. So he felt almost that it was a punishment to be sent to Arrowsmith, and he resisted it quite a lot. But once he saw the benefits of it, he was on board. So the social transition for Ewan was much harder. When they both left the school, they did ask, how do I say, like, nobody knows, my friends don't know what Arrowsmith is or where it is or anything. What do I say? And Will was going into high school, and I said, it's an alternative school. And you can, if someone's interested to know what that was or what that means, because alternative means all sorts of different things, then you tell them, and you tell them as much as you want to or as little as you want to. And once they had a couple of conversations, each independently of each other, then they were more comfortable with it. But the stigma is on the outside, not on the inside of the school. The stigma is in society. And once they had an experience to talk about it, then they could get their, 15-second elevator pitch of what they wanted to say and how they wanted to say it. Right. So there is a bit of I don't want to say formula, but there is a bit of an adjustment to explaining what you did, because as beneficial as we saw it and they saw it, and it was beneficial to our family as a whole, you do want to be sensitive to how you're perceived. So.
Certainly. Yeah, thank you. Now, Vicki, what, yeah, this is kind of a hard question, but what would families find most surprising about the school?
So, I think really for me, the thing that was most surprising was the impact on the family, that it wasn't just about Monica. It was about all of us, which I've already sort of talked about. And the degree to which it has given Monica confidence. That is also that I expected there to be some gains in confidence, but I hadn't understood how much that would occur. And one of the things that's indicative, I think, of something that Jennifer was just talking about. Sorry, it wasn't. It was you, Jason. You were talking about the self-advocacy. So we've just got a math tutor for Monica. And this is a person she's never met before. So she's generally shy with new people. And math is hard for her. And so she has to work hard at it. But I heard him say in the second or third lesson, because we're doing it virtually, I heard him say, Monica, I'm really impressed with the way that you tell me whenever you don't understand something, and the way that you ask me to say something again if you didn't get the way I said it the first time. Because so often when I am tutoring, we go for weeks on end before I understand that somebody has not fully understood something because they never said anything. And I'm really impressed with the way that you say that right away and like ask me, okay, tell me a different way. And you know, I realized that that has also come from Arrowsmith, and her ability to have confidence in asking for help when she needs it, and in being able to advocate for herself. So you know, that too, I think, is something I wasn't particularly expecting or looking out for.
Yeah.
Surprised me.
Very true. I think that it's that resilience or grit almost, where it just develops an innate sense of perseverance, where again, until a parent experiences what the exercises are like, there's just there's no way to truly understand how much the teachers tell the students, no, try again, not yet, you're getting closer, you're almost there, over the course of days and days and days. And the students still will not put their head down and cry. They just keep plugging away at it. I think too, because we also report on engagement. And I talk to students all the time that if they never meet their goal from period to period, and that doesn't happen, that if they never meet their goal, but their engagement's high, meaning that they put in the full 40-minute period every time, I'm just as happy with that. You know, because then I know that they're going to be making the changes that we all want them to see. I guess Shannon, you know, considering that you are relatively new to Arrowsmith, and knowing that we have the online model and the bricks and mortar model, what advice would you give to any family that is considering a move to Arrowsmith School, either online or in person?
Boy. Well, honestly, I can maybe sum it up is, you know, and maybe I'm the unicorn, but I honestly feel like Arrowsmith it should not be atypical. Like the way Arrowsmith I'm just so blown away by isolating the cognitive function, how it's opened up my daughter to new tasks, to new academic focus, but piano, playing with her friends. This should be how the model works for academics. The advice I think would be to, number one, to trust your instinct. And if your child is not fitting into what is supposedly typical, we're trying to fit that square peg in a round hole. Why don't we take our child and put him or her in an environment that looks at the child as a whole and wants to fix so that they can be a whole person going forward, whether that whole person is to graduate with a master's program or a PhD somewhere, or if it's to not go to college and go to a drama environment. Trust your instincts and understand that when you focus and allow your child to heal their learning differences, it opens them up to just to their personality. Actually, it just opens them up to who they are. And I asked you, Mr. Kinsey, in the beginning, like, what if I make a mistake? I'm so like, okay, what if I make a mistake? What if we're making the bad decision? And you said, Shannon, there can't be a bad decision because we're going to work with you because it's about your daughter. And I was like, sold. And by the way, also, I said you get 1 year with my daughter and then we're putting her back in school. We've been in the full-time program for like 1 month, and now I never want you to let us go. We're going to stay forever, and you're going to have to figure it out.
Okay. I think Rob and I have heard that a lot from other parents before, where families are just not ready to move on. Vicki, any words of advice if anybody would like to, thank you, Signum. if you had any other questions, Signum, please put them in the chat box. But Vicky, any words of advice for any family that is considering, making the change to Arrowsmith School?
So there are three things really that I always tell any parent who's asking me about Arrowsmith, and I know that they're asking because their kid is struggling in some way, and they're trying to figure out, is Arrowsmith, can Arrowsmith do anything for my kid? What do they do there exactly? And they don't really understand or know what the Arrowsmith program is. There's three things I always tell them. The first one is to do the assessment that's on the website, because you can answer those questions and very quickly get a sense of whether or not Arrowsmith addresses whatever it is that your kid is struggling with or not. So is do the assessment on the website. It's a quick and easy way to find out whether Arrowsmith matches your needs or not. The second one is look into the medical tax credit, because there may be a way that you can cover some of the school fees through the medical tax credit. And the third one is, it used to be, buy a copy of the book Brain School by Howard Eaton, because that will explain and give you a really good sense of how the Arrowsmith program works and how effective it is. Only now I don't have to say buy it anymore, because Arrowsmith's just made it available to download free of charge, which is like kudos to you guys. Fantastic. So those are the three things: download and read Brain School, do the assessment from the website, and check into the medical tax credit.
Okay, wonderful. Jennifer, same for you. Any words of advice to any family that is considering making a switch to Arrowsmith School?
The new things that I've heard in this call are because the assessment wasn't on, I don't think it was online.
No, the online questionnaire was not online. No.
So yes, I mean, you thought you could get rid of me, but no, I'm still around. It's and the idea of the Brain School. I mean, I read Barbara's book. I read The Brain That Changes Itself, and then I read the Brain School, and I mean, it was sort of my learning curve as well. But you're right, that book really does explain from a professional psychologist, his experience and his learning curve of some kids can do remedial and it works for them, and some kids it just doesn't.
Thank you all very much for spending this hour with us. It's always nice to hear about your children's experiences, across 3 schools and all over the world. So thank you all, and we'll be sure to include you when we send out the recording. Okay.